Okay, today I'm going to show you how to create irrigation contracts. It's not really fun, but it's pretty easy to do once you do a lot of them. Um, so we'll start with the easiest one, which is just the one-time customers who are paying $85. Pretty simple to do. So the first thing I do is when I open the ticket, I see that it's a winterization, $85, so it's just a one-time service. So we go to the Service Master and Contracts, and if you double click the Contracts tab, it'll open up. And then we're going to create a new contract. We're going to use the customer's SM67700. The naming of the contract doesn't really matter. It just can't duplicate anything that's already been created before. But for a non-contract customer, I usually put IRNC. Or if there's already one existing, you could do IRNC-1, or the naming doesn't really matter. So the start date for winterization in 2019 is 9/1 of 19. That's true for any contract that you create. It's 9/1 of 19. And then the expiration date just depends on if it's a one-time service or a one-year service. So if it's a one-time service, we're going to do it 6 months out, would be 3/1/19. If it's a one-year service, then we make it 9/1 of 20. I'm sorry, this should be 3/1 of 20. So for a one-time service, it's 6 months, so out to March of 2020. If it's 1 year, it's 1 year, so 9/1 of 19 to 9/1 of 20. Our contract amount is $85 on this one. Division is 75. Then we change the contract type. Now you're either going to use this PRS VRCT or the 6-month one. So this 6-month one is for the one-time service, and this is for the 1-year service. I would use these ones instead of the other ones we created last year, which were the irrigation non-contract and maintenance contract. If you use these, you'll see that it has reserve accounting checked off, and we are not using that anymore. So you want to use these two. And if you just type PRS, it'll bring you right down to these. So we're going to use 6 months for the $85 service, and then we'll save. It'll ask if you want to make this the expiration date, say yes, and then OK. Okay, so then the only thing you do is create the maintenance schedule for a one-time service. So we click maintenance schedule, go to new. The task code will be maintenance. Maintenance call every 6 months. Just one call because we're only doing one service, and the date is the 9/1 of 19. And we're just going to call this winterization $85. And then we'll save. We don't need to enter any maintenance parts. And now we just have to complete the maintenance because we're done with this service. And it was done on 10/16/19. Invoice number 684587. If you hit tab, it'll ask you, do you want to mark it as complete? And yes, we do. So we'll say yes, and we'll save that. And that is it for the contract. So then we would just go in and complete the invoice. Since the call is already created and it's all done, you don't necessarily have to come in and change all of the service type and all of that, but I recommend doing that in case we want to run a report on service types and see who had a 6-month contract or 1-year contract. So when we go into this invoice, aside from our normal thing that we do, we also go to contract and click that new contract we created. And then we'll change this service type to match what we created on the contract. That's the 6-month service type. So we'll save that, go to the billing details and make sure this matches. And we'll save that, and that is all we do on that ticket. And I'm going to go ahead and fake print this so it'll be ready to post. Okay, so let's do one more of those. Here's another $85. This says bill customer. We don't like to do that, so we're not going to do that one. Okay, this one was collected. It's a standard winterization. Dean's pretty good about putting if it's standard, economy. He puts really good notes in there. So first thing we do is go to the service location, go to contracts, double click that, and I go ahead and pull this down just so I can see that call. So new contract 118579 IRNC 9/1 through 3/1. It's a 6-month contract, $85. Division's goods. The contract type is the 6-month contract. So I'll save that, and then we'll just create the maintenance schedule. Every 6 months, one call, winterization 85. Okay, and then we can enter the completed date, tab, and yes, we want to mark it as complete, and then we'll save that. And then we just follow through like a normal ticket. We go in and complete this, and we will go ahead and pick the contract that we created, change the service type, and then make sure the service type matches on the inside of the invoice. Okay, and that's all for that. Usually we double check the notes if there's anything in here we need to know. Dean puts a lot of notes, so I don't always read all of those. But I'll approve that and go ahead and fake print. Okay. So the $85 contracts are pretty simple, especially once you've done a lot of them. You can do them really quickly. I'm going to work on one of the 1-year contracts now to show you how that works. So same process, we'll open this up, read the notes here. Tim said they're paying for a contract, $180. So we do this a little bit differently as far as naming the contract and the maintenance schedule. So I'm going to pull this down here. So I'm going to create a new contract. I'm still going to use the SM, but I'm going to call this Econ because it's the economy program. In the past we've also just called it IR. That's fine. The name doesn't matter again. But the start date will be 9/1, like every contract we do this fall. The expiration is also 9/1 of 20 because it's a 1-year contract. Now the contract amount, he collected 180, but we don't put the contract in for the full 180 because $20 of that is for the backflow testing in the spring. So we're only going to do 160 for the 1-year contract. And we're going to pick this first one now because that is the 1-year one. So I'll save that and then create the maintenance schedule. Go to new, maintenance. So now the maintenance will be every 6 months, but there will be 2 calls, one in the fall and one in the spring. First maintenance date is still 9/1/19. And here we're just going to put winterization / startup prepaid 160. And then I also put in parentheses here plus $20 backflow. So I'll save that. I'm not going to create maintenance parts. And now you'll see we got 2 lines here on the maintenance schedule. We've completed this fall maintenance, is what he just did. So we'll put in the date and invoice number, tab, and yes, we want to mark it as complete. The other thing you want to do is take out these amounts. If you don't take that out, then in the spring when he goes out there and does the startup, then when I do the commissions, it will show that he got $80 in labor and $80 in maintenance. So it kind of doubles his revenues. So we want to delete that out of there. And then we'll save that. So now when we go to create the startup, you'll see the contract that we created, and we'll book it under maintenance and it'll work the way it's supposed to. Okay, so that's all for the 1-year contract on that. And then we're going to go in and complete this invoice. So now you see he has 180 because that's what he collected here. We need to change this to the $80 only because we're only going to recognize $80 for the winterization. The other $80 is for the startup, and then the $20 is for that backflow fee that we're not including in the contract. Usually in the payment reference I'll put prepaid 180 just in case we go back and look at this and need to know how he collected. When he uses a credit card it's already attached though, so it's not too hard to see. So we'll pick that first PRS one, that's the 1 year. And then we go in and make sure this matches and change this to $80. That's all we're recognizing at this time. Okay, so that's the first 1-year one. Let's do one more of those. And same situation here, so let's go and make the contract first. So new contract, SM, I'll put econ here again, 91 to 91 for 160 only, not for the full 180. And then we use that 1 year service type again. And we create the maintenance schedule. Every 6 months there are 2 calls total. Winterization / startup prepaid 160 plus 20 backflow. Save that, no maintenance parts. Enter the completion date. Tab. Yes, we'll mark it as complete, and then we'll delete the amount off of here. And then we just complete the ticket like normal. Put in some extra notes if we need. Prepaid 180, choose the contract. Choose the 1 year PRS service type. Make sure that line matches and only recognize $80 for the winterization. Okay, so that's the 1-time and the 1 year contracts. You might run into some other situations, if I can find one here, where they have already prepaid. So like this one here, if you go in and see in the notes that it's a prepaid customer, the first thing I usually do is go to the work order, and we see that customer service has put in that they were prepaid $80. We can double check that by looking at their AR here. And we do see that they paid the 180 back in July, so they do have $80 left over for the winterization. The first thing I do is kind of the same process. We go to the service location, open up that contract that's already created, go to the maintenance schedule, and make sure that there's no amount in this line item. Otherwise, it'll count him as $80 in maintenance and $80 in labor when we do the ticket. So that one's good. And then we just process this like a normal ticket. Make sure we're recognizing that remaining $80. Contract type was already chosen because it was booked through the contract. Some of the contracts that are already created will have bill items that I created when I made the contracts. If you click that and save it, it's going to ask you if you want to include that bill item. If you say yes here, what it does is it creates the bill item for you with the right service type. You'll see down here that it says it's connected to this contract and this bill. Not all of them will have that. They don't have to have it. If it does, just go ahead and use it, and you can delete the other line item that's on there. Actually, I think I just deleted the bill item, but that doesn't matter. So then we're just recognizing that $80, and then we see the contract is connected to this invoice. Now the only other thing you have to do with the prepaid ones that already have money on their account is you either have to notate their AR number, write it down on a piece of paper, and then when it's posted, then we can apply the payment. So you can either apply that, or you can give that to me or Sherry, and we can apply all those ARs later. Now we can associate deposits, but one thing that I've noticed, we'll see if this one does it. When you go to associate that deposit, you'll see that this has a negative amount remaining. I don't know if that's an issue with Sawin. I assume it is, but if you try to associate that, it's going to be all messed up. So we'll just worry about applying the payments later. So just notate any ARs where you have money already on the account and you're recognizing the rest of that money. And then we'll just apply that later. Okay, so that is all for the 1 year ones. I wanted to see if maybe there was a 1 year one that didn't have a backflow, this one is actually a backflow and a winterization. So the $75 is just a normal backflow fee, and the $85 is for the winterization. So we're considering this a one-time winterization. So we'll go in and do this one real quick. So 9/1 to 3/1, just 6 months. We'll pick that second 6-month service type. Winterization, $85. Okay. And the only difference in this case is we want to match these service types to the line item like we did before, but we do have one irrigation service line item for the backflow test and then one line item for the actual winterization. So we see winterization here, we're going to change this to match that, and then our backflow test is just going to stay under the regular irrigation. Okay, and that is probably all you really need to know to create the one-year contracts and the one-time contracts. We might do, let me see if there's another already prepaid customer, because that can get kind of confusing when you're associating the money. Okay, so that is not one of them. This may be one. Yeah, so we see it's prepaid $80. We see they have that on their account. If I go in and try to associate that money, we'll see if it gives us a negative number, and it doesn't. So we'll try this one. So you click that and click the green arrow, and it should associate that remaining $80 with this ticket. So if you are able to associate the money, you don't have to worry about writing down the AR number and applying it later because it'll already be in here. So again, if the customer's prepaid, they've got money on their account, there might be a bill item here you can click. And then it will throw that contract billing item in here with the correct service type. So in that case, I'll just delete these other two lines. Okay. And it looks like that $80 is going to connect to this invoice correctly. If you did try to associate a deposit that was negative, you would see down here, instead of it showing a 0 balance, it would actually show a negative 80 balance. And that's where Sawin gets kind of messed up. So I would recommend not ever associating any negative unapplied cash. Okay, so that should be all. If you have any questions, let me know. If you run into anything weird, let me know. Don't worry too much about naming contracts. The name doesn't really matter, just as long as you have the start date and the expiration date correct. Whenever you can, try to make sure that the service types match the line items. And then just be careful with unapplied money. All right.